Ten Hag's been talking again in an exclusive interview with the Dutch newspaper. He said, when we started here, United hadn't won a trophy for 6 years, and it really wasn't because they didn't have good managers here. It does say something about the composition and quality of the player group. I knew that when I started, of course, but they were playing with long-term contracts. We were and still are in the process. If you compare our squad with other top clubs in the Premier League, we are certainly a bit less in terms of depth. That is exactly why we found it so difficult to deal with those injuries. Gav and Frank still with it. Thank goodness you've got Ten Hag coming in and bringing in some signings that really worked out well to balance those ones that didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And nobody else had any injuries last year either. But he did have, to be fair, he did have quite a lot. But there was a lot of times during the season where the bulk of those players that he's talking about were available and were fit. And it was also his choice to leave at one point, at various points of the season, to leave Rafael Varane when he was fit on the bench for Johnny Evans. These are decisions that he made. Now, look, there's no... He used a lot of excuses last year.
Yeah.
And most of them were a load of baloney. You know what I mean? You don't need... When he played Coventry and, for example, sneaked, and I mean sneaked through in the semi-final, they had 11 internationals on the field. Now, was it the best Manchester United side and squad? No, it wasn't. But they still had a much better 11 available to them than Coventry City of the Championship, who were sitting 8th in the Championship at the time. And yet, from half-time onwards till the end of extra time, were completely outplayed. So, and that wasn't a sort of standalone game. So, listen, he's just... It seems to me this year we're going to get a continuance of last year.
Yes.
Where Erik Ten Hag talks a lot. And talks a lot about the problems and why he should be given a knighthood in England because of the job he's... And all this sort of stuff. And the bottom line is, if he'd have been out of job this year, if they'd have got a manager worth any salt that they could have done a deal with.
Yeah.
And they couldn't, and that's why he remained in a job.
Do you know, he's actually at some stage maybe going to talk some sense. But the problem is, you don't listen to what he says anymore. I mean, we haven't even started the season, and anything he says, you're thinking, what is he talking about? I mean, yes, they had injuries, yes, they had this and that. It might not, maybe they didn't have the deepest squad. But the real problem he has is that even when he had all these players, they were as bad as they were without all these players. So whenever he talks, you don't listen.
No. Frank, it's like when Frank talks.
Yeah, no, but you know, I would love to be in the press conference when he say that and say, I'm sorry, sir, do you believe that we're going to believe what you're saying right now? Because really, we've seen you playing, we've seen your team, even with the best 11 that you could make, with people not injured. You've been like not Manchester United. Like the Manchester United we all know, and the level that we're expecting from you. You pay those players so much that we have to see something better. That guy has to stop talking, with all due respect, because really, it getting into everybody's nerves right now. Because he's saying BS's like every time he's going out on a press conference. Because nobody believes what he says. Even the Manchester United fans don't go for it. So stop saying BSCs, please.
Poor Ten Hag. We want managers to talk, and when we do, we shout at them, Gab.
We do. I think you guys are being a little bit hard on him here, right? So he's said some things which are, I think, undeniably true. Mark Ogden is obsessed with the idea of Manchester United extending contracts ad infinitum to a whole range of, in his opinion, mediocre players. People like Lindelof, people like Shaw, people like Scott McTominay, people like Anthony Martial, right? All these guys, and I think this is who he's referring to, were people who just sat there, had really long contracts, got their contracts extended, they were often injured, they didn't contribute much, but they stuck around forever. And that limits how quickly you can turn over the squad. That is a fact. That is in Ten Hag's defense, it's in Solskjaer's defense, it's in Mourinho's defense. All these things are true, okay? At the same time, it's also true that they had a ton of injuries, as did other clubs. This is also true. Equally, on the flip side, did United play well, as the boys pointed out? No. When they had everybody fit, they generally played pretty badly. And secondly, when Ten Hag had the opportunity to fix things, to make signings, he made signings that on the whole, generally, were pretty bad. Whether it's Anthony or whether it's Mason Mount, who then gets injured straight away, doesn't contribute. Whether it's Eriksen, who contributes nothing. Whether it's Malacia, who then gets injured and misses the whole season. So I think he clearly has a share in the blame. He can't come out and say, oh, look, I made everything worse last year. But he does outline, I think, some of the sort of the structural problems that he tried to fix and thus far hasn't been able to fix, and which, frankly, he inherited as well.
I mean, Stevie's right in the sense that, you know, he's going to. When you're manager at Manchester United, it's a big story, right? Because you can argue about teams and performances, but this is a club that is one of the biggest around the globe. Mm-hmm. So it has a following that needs answers and quotes and press conferences and all that. I really don't give a stuff what he says. I mean, you guys might talk about it quite a lot in the coming weeks and that, but
Where are you?
I think he's going to be judged on. I think I'm. What do you mean?
Wait, why aren't you here?
Where are you going? 2
days and I'm going on holiday.
There you go, you see.
2 days I'm on holiday. So you got, you know, I don't really care. And I know it'll be a talking point, is at the end of the day, we're just going to judge them. I don't care if they get beat 3-0 in the next friendly, 4-0 in the next friendly, because Stevie and I talked about this the other day. The only thing that matters is when the trap's open and the starter's gun goes, the Premier League season.
Yep.
So he can talk all the gobbledygook that he's talked for the last 18 months. He can do it all he wants. At the end of the day, if he gets results and they get off to a flying start, he'll be praised. And if he doesn't, he'll probably be hammered. I don't think he's helping himself with some of the things that he has said. And, you know, in terms of Manchester United fans not accepting it, I think a lot of them do accept what he says. I think a lot of them have really fixed the bayonet because they won the FA Cup and Erik ten Hag's the greatest thing since sliced bread in some of their eyes. I think there are some a little bit more brighter than that, but there's a lot who are not. And the bottom line here is we're judging people when the season starts. This is just all sort of peripheral nonsense. Unfortunately, it is Manchester United, and unfortunately, Erik ten Hag is quite good at dropping the odd line in here or there.
The press. Sorry.
Oh, you want to?
I was going to move on.
Just let me. The people at Manchester United are not helping this guy, and his coaching staff are not helping him. Somebody should be telling him to shut up.
Right.
Just, you know, stop talking. You know, and he seems to be talking more than he did previously.
Right.
Keep your mouth closed.
Yep.
Keep every press conference. Get in, get out. Say as little as possible. Don't even reference last year. Because he keeps answering all these questions and talking about it. Somebody needs to get a hold of him and say, look...
Right.
It's a bit like us.
That's enough. That's enough. Shut up.
It's a bit like us. We should stop talking.
Well, because he just keeps digging himself a bigger hole, Gav. That's why. Don't you? Just because you're asked a question, you don't have to answer it. And get yourself in more trouble. And then people talk about you talking rubbish all the time.
Yeah. Okay, but Stevie, he's not talking in a press conference, right? He agreed to do an interview because he felt it was important to get his point across. He also said in that interview, if Manchester United thought they could get a better manager than me, then I'd be dropped tomorrow.
Don't do the interviews. Don't. Why are you... As a coach, the last thing you want to do is talk to journalists. So why are you organising an interview?
I think he
There's
really
no journalists following you.
Seriously.
Stevie,
what's it all about?
Stevie, there was one important point he wanted to get across in this interview, which was, he said, if Manchester United thought they could have a better coach than me, or the minute they think they can get a better coach than me, then I'll be out the door, right? He's basically saying, I'm here because Manchester United think that I am the best guy for the job because they couldn't find anybody else. They don't believe anybody else out there who they can get is better than me. And I think
but he's the only person that thinks that. So why is he even bothering telling anybody? He's the only person that thinks that. Every single thing you've just said, we've all gone, yeah, tell us something we don't know. It's like...
He wanted to restate that because he has...
Why?
Because it impacts his authority. So you're saying nobody believes this?
I'll tell you what. We're just mocking him
he's
even
all
more.
Pinocchio
That's how
when he
much
said
he's
that.
impacted his authority by letting us know.
It was public knowledge that they were quoting all these other managers. In fact, they interviewed or talked to some of the other managers, got as far as the financials.
And then they said, Ten Hag is better. And then, I mean, at least what he's saying is, they spoke to these other guys, and they said, no, guess what? We think Ten Hag is better. That's what he's saying.
So you sit managers down in an interview, having watched how their teams play, and then you talk to them for a couple of hours and go, I tell you what, our manager's better. Because we've talked to them for a couple of hours. I mean, it's all just nonsense.
If you're the coach, honestly, if you're the coach, right, the only people that you need to think you're good are your owners. The guy that counts, right?
Yep.
You don't need to come out and tell anybody and journalists that, oh, they think I'm really good. That's just stupid. All you need to know is that the people that employ you actually think you're the best for the job. That's all you need to know. You don't need to go telling the world just to convince them.
No, it's like that in all jobs.
Exactly.
Let's be honest. Let's be honest. They were briefing people. Some of the people at United were briefing people before the cup final that he was probably gone.
Madison.
Yeah.
Right? The only reason they had to sort of semi-backtrack with all this nonsense was because somehow Man City didn't turn up and United won. And that was his salvation.
Yeah.
Right, so let's not kid ourselves at anything else.
I'm going to say goodbye to Gab now. That's it, Gab. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
See you, Gab.
Lovely seeing you as always.